What's up, y'all? I'm Will here with Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, one of the highest rated hospitality podcasts in the world, brought to you by us at Schedulefly. We provide a very simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service. If you're on pencil and paper or Excel, or you're on some software with tons of bells and whistles and features you don't need or use, Schedulefly is the perfect place for you. Easy to use, point, click, and go, and we'll take great care of you. Schedulefly.com, free trial, check it out. All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedulefly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. All right, y'all. Over 500 episodes. This is one I'll never forget. This is a very memorable, meaningful, heartwarming story. Lindsay, Wrege of 321 Coffee. I'll just leave it at that, but I will tell you that if you're skipping through episodes, do not skip through this one. This is one of the coolest stories that we've ever had an opportunity to tell, and we feel very fortunate to be able to share this on our podcast. So thank you all for listening and enjoy. All right, we are live. We are recording. What's up? Oh, I have been so excited to do this episode. I'm like, oh, your business is like magic, Lindsay. So, well, do me a favor, just introduce yourself real quick.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay. I'm one of the co-founders of 321 Coffee, and seriously excited to be here. Thank you.
Every time I see anything y'all do, it brings so much joy to me. So tell us, okay, the first thing I ask everybody, and it's the only question that I ask everybody that comes on this podcast. Otherwise, it's kind of free flow and we just talk. But the one question I always ask is, how and when did you initially get into this wonderful world that we call hospitality?
College.
Okay. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, and a little bit of how I ended up there does date back before college. So when I was in elementary school, switched schools, didn't know anyone, and my first friends were some girls in that classroom that had different types of disabilities. But I was 7, 8 years old, and any of those labels of like, oh, well, she has Down syndrome and he has autism, like really didn't mean anything. They were just my friends. And I grew up with them as my best friends. Flash forward multiple years, we were getting to high school graduation and started recognizing the differences in our life trajectories. So like my life was, going like this with college and study abroad and summer internships, and their life was really hitting a cliff. Recognized that 80% of adults with disabilities are unemployed. And especially when you've got, friends of 10, 15 years, that hurts. So had the idea to start a coffee company that would really be focused on employing people with disabilities. Figured that this could be a really great way to create supportive and inclusive work environments, training opportunities for professional growth and development and all of those things, but then also, to bring the community into a space that's really rooted in inclusion and create opportunities for other people to learn about it.
Okay. So 80% of adults, say that statistic again.
Yeah. 80% of adults with disabilities are unemployed.
80% are unemployed.
Yeah, really high.
That's way higher than I would have estimated. Okay. So you start realizing this and you go to, did you go to NC State?
Yes, the Go Pack.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. I grew up a State fan. I didn't go
Love
there, but,
that.
still love the Pack. So you grew up in Raleigh.
Yes,
Okay. And you went, and when did you finish at NC State?
2021.
Okay. Okay. So so how long, when did you open your first 321 coffee?
Yeah, so we started our first ever event was in the fall of 2017. So we were freshmen. We had a folding table that we rented from the student union. We bought a coffee maker from Target. Like it was very humble bootstrap beginnings. And then our first shop opened in the spring of 2019. So we just celebrated 5 years there. It's the shop at the farmers market. And I mean, we built it ourselves. Like I did the nail gunning and some of our baristas showed up to help paint. Like it was, again, very homegrown, but a huge community effort.
The shop at the farmers market. So this is a permanent structure at the farmers market there at, okay. Is that like on the fairgrounds or something?
Uh, farmers market and fairgrounds are separate, but somewhat
Okay.
similar like setups.
Okay. Okay. So you've got, so spring of 2019, you open. So congrats on 5 years. And
Thank
then
you.
a year later, the whole world stops with COVID.
Correct. And that was
Um,
terrifying. I mean, it was terrifying for anyone in the hospitality, food and beverage industry, right? And for us, in addition to the panic of like, what do we do? We've got a business rooted in people being able to go outside and interact with one another. But on top of that, we focus on employing people with disabilities who are often immunocompromised and, hit hard by COVID. And we are also, I mean, spring of 2020, we were finishing up our junior year. We're going into our senior year and facing okay, what happens after we graduate from college? Like, does this become a side hustle? Does this fizzle? Do we pass it off to somebody? Could it become a full-time job? And we had so many ideas for growth and to get it to the point that we could work on it full time. And COVID obviously really threw a wrench in a lot of those plans.
hmm. So, so 2019, 2020, and how many locations do you have now?
5.
5. God, that's incredible. So when you say we, who's
Yes.
we?
So myself and I've got a co-founder named Michael. So the two of us met freshman year. And it was like, I sort of want to do this cool thing. I'll help. Okay, we should host an event. Yeah, we should host 2 more. We should, buy a coffee maker from Target. We should partner with a local roaster. We should roast our own. Like we just sort of kept one-upping each other, not in a competitive sense, but in a how do we push the envelope. So 2 of us started the company together and have both proudly been full-time with it ever since graduating. And then, I mean, we've got a kick-ass team. We've got like over 50 people on the team, people that have been with us from the beginning days on the folding tables, people that have joined more recently. It's been awesome to grow that team and that community.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So have you always been, I mean, you clearly have tons of entrepreneurial vibe going on. Is this something that were you always doing this kind of stuff? Like, were you doing like selling lemonade when you
I
were,
get asked this question all the time. So no, I never did a lemonade stand. I wanted to be a doctor, actually. So growing up, like I loved Curious George Goes to the Hospital. I used to always peek inside the windows of ambulances. I like that was plan A. Like I came to school pre-med, organic chemistry, like all of that. And then, yeah, this sort of presented itself and shifted directions, which was, its own thing and scary, admittedly. I did the one entrepreneurial thing I can point to from growing up. So I mentioned I had these friends from elementary school and I stayed really good friends with them. Growing up, I was also a dancer and they loved to dance. And at one point they found this adaptive dance program that I was a teaching assistant at, which was super fun. And the program shut down. And so my sister and I found a way to keep it going with those girls. And so I can give a little bit of entrepreneurial credit there, but that was more, I mean, it was more for my love of people and my friends and dance as opposed to like, I'm going to start a business. Um, but I guess that's also somewhat similar lines to how we ended up starting 321 Coffee. Like when we started it, the plan was never, multiple brick and mortars, roasting, distribution, all of that. It was how do we create a place for my friends to work and learn and grow?
Mm. God, Lindsay, what an incredible story. So it's very clear that you're doing this. This is not, you didn't do this to build a business. You built a business to do something that was important to you personally, which is awesome. And that's the best kind of business. Um, you were pre-med and you're doing this. Why, first of all, why coffee? Just out of curiosity, are you a big coffee lover or is it just like the
I
easiest
don't
thing to go sit
actually
up at the
drink
front?
coffee.
I knew you were going to say that somehow.
Yeah, I've got my
Really?
matcha. Yeah, yeah, I don't drink it. Um, and I realized the other day, like I will every time we do like roll out a new product or something like that, like I'll participate in coffee cuppings and I tell people like don't let my opinion carry any weight. But I realized I've only ever had black coffee. Like I've never tried a latte. I've never had cream and sugar. Like I've only ever had coffee in a coffee cupping. So, black. Um, anyways, but yeah, picked coffee because one, there was a very low barrier to entry in terms of our bootstrap setup, right? Like with a folding table. First ever event, we got a big carafe of coffee from Starbucks before we graduated to our coffee maker from Target, but it was low barrier. It was, there was an easy MVP. We could scale it down. But I also really like that the coffee industry is one that's very much built on community and human interaction, and you hang out with your friends at the coffee shop and you get to know the baristas and it becomes a part of your routine. And I think for the mission that we're trying to create, again, both the internal operations and employment opportunities, but more so than that, the community and the public interaction, and the coffee industry really is able to accomplish that.
Well, hospitality in general, and certainly coffee. And one of the things that, you know, makes what you're doing so special is I'm sure your coffee's really good, but this isn't about like some, our beans come from this special secret farm up in the,
Correct.
rainforests of like it's about people.
It
It's
is.
about happy, joyful, loving people that work for you, that are your customers, that this coffee is the product, but the experience is people. That's very clear to me. If you follow your social media and you see what you are doing, and it's an experience that is, very unique, very rewarding. I'm sure I would imagine your customer base is full of loyal regulars.
We have a lot of good people, which, yeah, means a lot.
When did you so you get the first one going and you're like, okay, you're still in college and you're trying to figure this thing out. When did you realize pre-meds was what I went to college pre-med and I, I couldn't cut it because I couldn't cut the academic part. So it was probably a very different reason than you didn't move forward with that. But there was some point where you went, you know what? Like that sounded great, but this is my mission. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, it was scary. So I distinctly remember I was in the fall semester of my sophomore year and I was in like physics 2 and orgo 2 and just like boring, dense classes. And I'm very appreciative that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to endure those hard sciences because obviously the world needs those people. But I remember sitting in those classes just feeling like, what am I doing here? Like I don't care. I can learn this and I can, grit my teeth and figure it out, but I don't want to. And I remember being excited to figure out insurance. And I remember being excited to figure out how do you set up payroll and right, like even the admittedly boring parts of business, I was energized to do. And I think that that was really telling. Now, it was scary because, I mean, I think anyone that has, they're a lifelong dream and, very fixated on one thing, when you start realizing like, or second guessing yourself and thinking like, maybe it's not this one thing, is intimidating. And especially, it's not like it was, oh, I'm going to give up medicine and I'm going to go become an astronaut because NASA's offering me this, incredible opportunity. It was, I'm going to go try this other thing. All I have to my name is a folding table. Hopefully it works. That was really scary, and ended up having a lot of conversations with a ton of mentors, friends, family, and it was really encouraging, a lot of the support that they gave, and saying like, what's the worst that could happen? I hear, there was one mentor in particular who said, I hear the enthusiasm in your voice when you talk about this. I would love for you to just have the opportunity to try. And that was really encouraging. And so it was through a lot of these conversations that I really shifted my mindset and, reshaped it of, I would rather try this and fail than regret not trying. And that was empowering. So that was, in making the decision to switch majors. And then it was ultimately making the decision to pursue it full time, despite COVID, despite there being two of us, despite us only having one shop at the farmer's market. We were very fortunate, Michael and I. We both had a full ride scholarship to college. So we were graduating debt free, and, being able to say, all right, let's give this a go. And if 6 months from now it crashes and burns, we're very fortunate to be in a position where we aren't paying student debt on month one. At that point, 6 months from now, we'll just go get another job, but we'll at least know that we tried.
Boy, that brings up so many things. First of all, because you're just a few years out, so you probably have friends, classmates that have debt, that have graduated with debt. And
Yeah.
servicing debt's a big deal, particularly nowadays because tuition costs have gone up so much, and there's like I don't know, like 1.7 trillion in student loan debt or whatever it is. That's a lot of interest, added on interest, that compounds, that limits your options severely.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
um, wonderful that y'all had that opportunity. And the second thing I would say is, I'm so glad you had those mentors, because you've got a long, long road ahead. And, taking risks in life gets harder and harder the further along you get. You get married, you get kids, you get a house, you have a mortgage, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm stuck in this corporate gig that I don't like, but I don't have any options at this
Right.
point. So,
Absolutely.
who are some of the mentors that, have been really important to you?
Yeah. I appreciate that question. The one that was really influential was named Lewis Sheets. He was one of our professors at NC State in the entrepreneurship program. He recently left Raleigh to move to St. Louis and go build out their entrepreneurship program, which was a big loss for Raleigh, but a big win for St. Louis. And even though he's not been physically here for the past, I think like 2-ish years, he is still, something happens, he's the first call and he answers right away. And it just it feels so good to know that you have someone like that in your back pocket. Another person that's been incredible is a woman named Trish LaPeglia. She is in the office experience world formally, like for a startup company called Pendo, but has a huge background and appreciation for hospitality, and just always has this ability to like push the envelope when it comes to ideas and ways to make things better and ways to make people feel seen and special. And we formally met her like through 321, and she helped cultivate an incredible partnership with 321 and Pendo. But she's just become a great mentor, and again, the type of person where something comes up that you just really have no idea how to handle, call her. If she's either got experienced it or she'll figure it out with you. And yeah, having those types of people is huge.
Absolutely. I saw Maggie King in one of your videos from A Place at the
Yes.
Table.
Yes.
Are y'all friends?
Oh, big time. Yeah. And again, someone who started as a mentor, and very glad to call her a friend now. I remember first meeting her because she has somewhat of a similar story of, going to NC
Yeah.
State and graduating and
Yep.
having this like social idea that she wants to pursue. But not having the experience or all of the answers and just saying like, all right, let me go figure this out. And so I remember when we were starting 3-2-1, just being so inspired by what she did and seeing someone who was young and someone who was a woman and someone who was doing something socially driven, figuring it out. And it was very much, well, if Maggie can do it, then I can do it. And she is, another one of those people that no matter what it is, she'll answer the phone, she'll show up and help pack boxes, she'll show up with food, she'll show up and go on a walk, she'll show up and vent, she'll show up and cry. She's amazing.
She is amazing. I would feel very lucky to have had her on this podcast, and we've actually been talking about having her back on because it's been a little while. I wonder, one of the things I thought was really interesting is that I think when we first got to know her, do you know Sophia Wu?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sophia's that's how we got connected. And at the time when I first got connected to her, I think she was just leaving or just getting back from, like, she took like a
She hiked the
sabbatical
Camino. Yes.
over in, was it Spain or?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And that was just like a month or two or something, and got a lot out of that sabbatical. Is that you're probably not there yet, but is that something that you've thought about? Because that's probably was very hard for her to pull herself away, but then she had a lot of trust in her team to sort of manage things while she was gone. One of the
Totally.
things about being an entrepreneur is you're kind of like, you're all in it all the time. You're answering calls, you're putting out, you're just doing stuff all the time, and you're doing it because you love it and you don't want to ever stop it. But, and I've learned this lesson the hard way once or twice over the years, sometimes you just like, your body just says, I'm sorry, but like, I'm going to force your hand right now and I'm shutting you down. Like, that's happened to me. Like, and it's because you just never really want to stop. You're like, today I'm going to take an off day. And next thing you know, like an hour later, you're like doing something. And it's like,
Totally.
I'm going to guess that you probably have that personality or something like
Yep.
that. And then I wonder, and the reason I asked that question is just it being relatable that, I mean, I'm 50, so I've had to learn this the hard way over the years, um, but I would encourage you to follow that path as well of just making sure you're getting the appropriate time to just decompress and get away. And because you wind up like, for every day you spend away, you probably come back with 10 days of energy or whatever. I'm sure Maggie came back with that, like just loaded for bear or whatever. But I follow that path as well. That's a great thing, that sort of bar that she said, I think.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you're spot on, right? Like you take entrepreneurship and that's constant, and you take the hospitality industry and that's constant, and you stick them together and it's just, there is always something, there is always a fire, there is always a to-do list, there is always an email, there is just, it's constant. And it was awesome to see Maggie both, get her team to a point that could exist without her, right? That's a huge accomplishment as an entrepreneur, to build systems that can exist without you. But to also show the trust in her team of, not only can like do the systems work, but I trust you to execute on them. And I'm going to be hands off, and I'm not going to bring my computer, and I'm not going to check my email. And to see the team step up and do it. And, I went to a place at the table multiple times while she was gone, and they were proud to know that they were doing it. And that's a beautiful thing. And yeah, we haven't gotten to the point where we've taken, 4 or 6 weeks off like Maggie has, but my favorite way to do that is to go on a cruise. I find it is like, my family growing up, that was something that we would do now and then as a family. And it was a great, relaxing, enjoyable vacation way of being together. And more recently, we've gone on a couple, which I feel very fortunate to do. And it's like the forced disconnection. Like you don't have Wi-Fi. You are in the middle of the ocean. There is no physical way of like being an emergency. Like I got you. And it takes work, and it takes prep, and it takes a team. But I've found that is such a great way, because you're spot on. If you say I'm going to go sit by the pool, I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to go do something, it's so easy to not actually relax.
Yep, it's a big thing for sure. So, and well, okay, so changing gears. First of all, I want to ask this question before I forget, because it's like the most basic question. But
Okay.
Why 321 coffee? What does the name come
The
from?
name, great question. So people with Down syndrome have three copies of the 21st chromosome. So that's where the 321 comes in. And then we use this striped pattern in a lot of our branding. It's on the side of our coffee bags. It's on a lot of our, window vinyl. And it's this very colorful striped pattern. And it's representative of chromosome mapping as a whole and just showcasing everyone's uniqueness.
That's amazing. So, okay, I figured it may have something to do with that. That's really cool. That's very creative branding.
Thank you.
So okay, so you had your first one. You
Yep.
get through COVID. So take me through the sequence. So you got five now. When did the second location open, and where is that?
Yeah. So before location number two opened, so 2019 happens, we launched the farmers market. This is so awesome. Like people are showing up. We're able to manage it. We have a product. The menu pricing is working. The staff is doing excellent. And we're like, let's go build on this. Right. We're getting and going into junior year. That's going to set ourselves up well to like pursue this full time after we graduate. COVID hits, done. Crap. Right. So we actually first, before we opened more brick and mortar, we started roasting our own coffee. So that was our big pivot when COVID hit, was recognizing that people aren't going to stop drinking coffee. They just might be drinking coffee from home right now. And we had all these people that wanted to work and weren't necessarily looking to be public facing. And so that was a way that we were able to create employment opportunities, but just doing it in a slightly different way. So that was a huge project of ours throughout 2020. And then it's, been obviously a continued endeavor and ways of growing it, but that was huge. And then eventually we started, things started lifting, and we started to see there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Let's get some balls rolling here again. So we were pursuing a shop in downtown Raleigh when Trish, who I mentioned was a mentor, she oversees office experience at Pendo. They're a startup that's headquartered here in Raleigh, but they're now $1 billion plus company. They've got, I think, 1,000 employees. Like they're past the startup phase. But they
Sure.
were
Yeah.
building a new headquarters here in Raleigh and looking for ways to, act on their values, which include DEI, and looking for ways to create unique office culture and give people a reason to come into the office. And so they were like, I think we want to have a coffee shop in this office. They learned about 321 and said, what do you think? Could we put a 321 coffee in here? And at the time, we were so hungry to grow and we were like, absolutely, yes, let's figure this out. So that opened officially in the spring of 2022. The shop in downtown Raleigh opened then in the summer of 2022. So both of those locations will turn two this year.
Okay. And then since then you've opened three more. So that's a fast growth trajectory.
Yeah. So, and then to close out 2022, we ended up opening a third store in Durham, North Carolina, which is another public facing shop. And then the fifth one opened this year at the beginning of the year, and it's another office type location.
Okay. And what's next?
So we have our next location, which is on track to open in August, is going to be on NC State's campus, which is really exciting from, starting the company as students, being alumni, being local, having so much support from the university to really bring it home is going to be awesome.
Oh, congratulations for you and Michael both. That's really cool. And then do you, I'm sure you've thought about this, like as you continue to grow and you build out these concentric circles, like will you grow this business through company owned? Do you think about franchising? What happens
Yeah,
next
great
over the next
question.
5 to 10 years? What's going to happen with the business?
Yeah, so we actually had a great conversation with our leadership team about this recently of like, where do you want it, thinking big, right? 10 years, what do you want it to look like? What is that metric of success that's important? And where do you want to get it to? And 10 years was a fun, like, it's far enough away that you can really dream big, but you're not talking 50 years where you just feel a little removed from that. And the biggest thing that we identified as like a metric that we wanted to be tracking and pushing was the number of meaningful work opportunities and work hours that we're creating. So our goal over the next 10 years is to cumulatively have created 1 million meaningful work hours. that would be awesome. And in discussion, we said this can happen through more brick and mortars. This can happen through more private cafes. This can happen through roasting distribution. This can happen through, we've got a coffee cart that is essentially a scaled down version of a shop, put it on wheels, and it can go into different events and such, right? There's a ton of different ways that this can grow. And we're not necessarily tied to, if 10 years from now we need 100 stores, or our coffee on 400 different grocery stores or anything like that. That can all happen, and that would be awesome. But really what matters is the work hours that we're creating.
All right, y'all, check it out. Stick is our sponsor, connectwithstick.com. This is an incredible text and marketing tool. So check this out. Engage your customers, drive foot traffic, and increase sales at your bar, your restaurant, your store with Stick. Your targeted messages reach your audience instantly, promoting special offers and events. Look, 98% of texts are seen within 3 minutes. So this thing is simple and it's effective and it works. Elevate your marketing strategy and watch your customer base grow with the most direct way to connect with your customers through text. Start today and see results on the very first text. Stick is a better way to connect with your customers and the easiest way to increase your sales. www.connectwithstick.com. And again, that's www.connectwithstick.com. Folks, this is an awesome sponsor. It's an awesome business. We at Schedulefly know them well. We know that the results are there. This is a highly effective tool, and it's run by a business run by great people. Check them out, connectwithstick.com. So you measure success. In 10 years, we've created 1 million meaningful work hours. How many work hours have you created so far?
This year, we're on track for around 60,000.
60,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. And when you the other thing I wanted to ask you is I loved your post. Y'all were at Whole Foods. So you've got your coffee is it just in the Whole Foods in Raleigh or locally there?
Locally, yeah. We're in the 6 local Whole Foods here.
6 local Whole Foods. How's it going so far?
It's going really well, which is awesome. And we have people just send us selfies of like, just got your coffee, love it. And, at first that would come from my mom and my neighbor and my college professor, but people that we don't know are sending us selfies like that and saying, I'm so proud to see this. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of the team. Congratulations. And like, that's so cool.
Do you have it in the 6th there? Is that a trial run to see if there's success in selling it to grow to more Whole Foods, or does Whole Foods look at it and say, you're in this geographic footprint, this is where people know your brand, it makes sense here, and as you grow, then you can grow with us? Is that how that goes?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Like, they definitely put us in the 6 local Whole Foods because we're logically locally here, but they've said their goal is to help local brands get more reach. And so if something performs well, they're open to adding and sort of growing that circumference. So yeah, step 1 is do well locally. Step 2, grow the store count.
Grow store count. How does that happen? Like, do you call somebody at Whole Foods and say, hey, I want to come tell you what we're doing? Or did you know somebody there? I'm always curious about how stuff like that happens.
Yeah. So they do have like a form online, but it's oftentimes, I feel like, you press submit and it just goes into the abyss and you never hear from anyone. And so we didn't do that. Like, I really wanted to try and find somebody to understand this process. And so basically my approach whenever I have a big idea like this is like, I'm just going to tell everybody who I'm trying to get in touch with. And eventually somebody's going to know somebody and it's going to be the right person.
Yes.
And that happened. So our architect had a friend whose neighbor was the general manager of a Whole Foods here in Raleigh. And so he helped me get in touch with them to have a meeting and to learn more about what we're doing and share more about the process. And he was basically like, yeah, so Whole Foods onboards new vendors once a year for different categories throughout the year. But, the coffee category is onboarded or that's new vendors once a year. And so they're like, if it's now, then great. If it was a week ago, you're going to have to wait for this time next year. And so he said, I'll figure out when that is and I'll let you know. And he called me that afternoon and was like, the coffee section is open right now. It closes on Friday. I'm going to send you the
Oh gosh.
application. Like, do what you can to get it in. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait another year. And so it was like, drop everything to like fill this out and send it over. And then, they came back and said, great, like everything, like pricing and the specs look good. Like, we would love to test the products. And then we would send that over, and they said like, okay, we really like the quality, like can we review your packaging? And that we started going through the whole process, and then it was time for the first purchase order, and then it got real.
And you've got the capacity to grow your roasting business with Whole Foods and elsewhere just through the business itself. Like you've got,
Yeah, we've got some unused capacity at the moment. We've got another retailer that we're about to launch. When do you think this podcast is going to air?
let's say not probably 2 weeks.
Okay. I don't think we'll have announced it by then. But we've got
When do you
another
think you'll announce it?
end of August.
Okay, it'll air before then. Okay, so
Okay.
we'll keep it on the down low
We'll
for
keep
now.
it, yeah, we'll keep people waiting for more. But we've got another retailer that we're launching in a couple weeks, and it's actually going to be 500 stores, which is crazy. It'll be a part of their like local program. So we just fulfilled our first like purchase order for them last week. It was like 6 pallets. It was the first time we had ever had to build our own pallets. It was the first time we had to figure out how to wrap pallets. It was the first time we had to figure out how to like ship pallets. And so between that, Whole Foods, some other like office wholesale, we are excited to be looking at bigger warehouse space, because there are days in here where it's like standing room only, like no extra bodies, because it's just at max capacity.
Oh wow! Okay, that's amazing. How do
Thank you.
you 500 locations? Like, do they help you with marketing the brand within these locations, or do they just put you on a shelf? Like, I mean, you go in a coffee, what I guess if it's a whatever kind of retail it is, there's a lot of other coffees there.
Yeah, totally.
Your
So this
brand is
it's in there. Yep. So they're working with us. They've got a great local program where there's definitely some exceptions to like their standard rules, which is nice. And so looking at ways of doing, new promotions, new store features, new messaging. But it's also a big opportunity where we've got to get the packaging to be one that makes somebody want to pick it off the shelf, wants to read it. Realistically, all of these stores carry so many products that, my ask of them was like, hey, could we get like some shelf talkers in there, or, some in-store signage? And they were like, throughout the year, probably yes, but all the time, no, because there's just so many products that we can't do that for everyone, which I understand. But that's where they're looking at how can we play off of different times of the year that talk about, Disability Employment Awareness Month, or National Autism Day, or World Down Syndrome Awareness Day, or different things like that, to really tell that story, so that we make sure, or we can do our best to help ensure that consumers and customers of the grocery store are learning about the why behind the product.
Yeah, absolutely. Do y'all have do you work with, like, do you have a PR firm, or there? I've just noticed that. And I have no idea how Maggie got on that, whatever she was on Today's Show, or I know that she was on
She was
some
on
national show
Kelly
up in New York.
Clarkson, which is so
Was that okay,
cool.
Kelly Clarkson? Was that
Yeah.
random, or does she like? Do they have a PR team, or?
No, she's not worked with a PR agency, and we haven't either. Been fortunate, I think, in both instances, that there's a lot of bad news in the world. And so a lot of these outlets are looking to cover good stories. And so, yeah, if you can get right in front of the right person, if you can, I mean, we've been really fortunate with just organic reach. We were on the Today Show, a little over a year ago. And that, yeah, it was, the reach that they have is just incredible. Like these national, news stations.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. I didn't realize that. That's amazing. So you've
Thank
already been
you.
on the Today Show. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
It was super cool.
What's the You've got such a positive vibe and positive energy, Lindsay. What are the things? Have there ever been times where you're like, God, this is so hard. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks ago, was the gigantic 6 pallet coffee order, which is already like I mean, it was over, I think it was around 3,500 bags of coffee. Like it was a lot of coffee. Um, we can fill it, but that's bigger than our typical order. And so that was, a little bit of all hands on deck. Like, how are we going to figure this out? And we're getting ready and to do it. And we're getting close to the end. And, I remember very specifically, we're there Friday night, like working late, and we're like, all right, between Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be able to finish this up. Um, and one of Michael got a call that his grandmother was getting moved into hospice, which was horrible. And so he oversees more of the roasting and productions and logistics side, and I do more of like the business development side. And so it's like, okay, of course, like you need to go. I and the rest of the roasting team will figure this out. And I'm already a little bit nervous about this. And overnight, the other people on the team got a call that they had a family emergency come up. An accident had happened and they needed to get out of there, which again, tragic and horrible and completely what they needed to do. But it left me singularly with 1,500 pounds of coffee left to roast and package and 6 pallets to build and cases to box. And then, just because it's the perfect storm, right? Somebody else on our team that oversees like all of our shops and people and HR, like she's just out on vacation for the week. And so all of a sudden the entire roasting and production staff is out on family emergency. Our shop and HR person is out on vacation. And here I am, and with this gigantic order. And it was terrifying. It was scary of, is this all going to get done in time? It was scary of how do you feel and support your people emotionally, but also keep the business running. And it was really hard. But at the same time, the rest of the team recognized the chaos that was ensued, and everyone said, how can I help? And we just had everybody else that had never really even like stepped foot in our roasting facility and in our warehouse coming over and folding boxes and taping things together and learning how to use the packing line and learning how to seal bags and learning how to build pallets together. And then it came time to pallet wrap, and we're like, we've never even done this. And here we are like Googling like how do you wrap pallets, like watch YouTube videos, and how do you use, it's just all of these things that you don't think about. But yeah, the amount of like support and love for each other that like the rest of our team showed was incredible. And it was overwhelming of like feeling so sad for our people who were hurting and so appreciative for the love and support that we had. And like, how do you feel both of those emotions so strongly at the same time? Like that was overwhelming.
That is overwhelming, and it's even all the positive emotion can be draining sometimes. So yes, well, you nailed it earlier, because being an entrepreneur can be a lonely road. It's hard. The buck stops with you, as it did that night.
Yeah.
And it's also, the world of hospitality is just, I've learned so much about what it takes to be in this business through the eyes of all the people we've been lucky to have on this podcast, right? We've been doing this for like a dozen years. I used to think, oh, I'm going to start a restaurant one day. This looks like a lot of fun. And then I started interviewing our customers, and I went, there's just no way. Like for me, I couldn't, because there's so many things that can go awry at any time, on any day of the year.
Yeah.
24 hours a day. It's everything, because every aspect of the economy through the front or back door flows through hospitality businesses, like literally every aspect. So you could have an issue with the customer. You could have an issue with a piece of equipment. You could have an issue with like spoiled product. You could have an issue with somebody quitting mid-shift. You could have it's just,
absolutely,
or a metaphorical fire, a literal fire.
Yes.
It's
all possible.
So it's all possible at all times. And so I have tremendous respect for people that, like you, that, are able to do this and just keep doing it. And I know you get better at it all the time. I know that the little things become less important because, you start going the things that maybe used to bother you become, I mean, that's just true with anything you do. But I do think it takes a special type to really lean into this. And you've expressed something that I think is the sort of the common thread that I would weave through all the 500 plus people we've had on here, which is you love your business. You love what you do. You love the experience you provide to your team. You love the experience you provide to your guests. So there's this servant's heart love for just making life a little bit better for all the people around you that I think successful hospitalitarians bring always. Like if you're really going to make it in this business and you've got the ability to, that make it a sustainable thing to do for not just a couple years, but for decades, you got to have that in you. Because if you don't have that in you, if you're not wired that way, it's probably not the best thing. Like if you're doing it for money, if you're doing it for the ego of coming in there and being the person's like, oh, there's the owner. If you're doing it because you're this great chef or artisan coffee and it's just all about the product, I'm sorry, but it's probably going to be hard because you got to do it because you love people. I really feel like that's the common thread. If there's one thread that I've found through, because there's different management styles, there's different goals, there's different, but if you don't have that, it's tough.
100%.
But if you do have that, it's really challenging, but it's also really rewarding, isn't it?
Yes. And that's where, there's absolutely the hard days. And there's going to be hard days in whatever industry you're in, right? But the highs can be so high. And that's what's awesome.
Tell me about your team. This started because you had friends with autism, with Down syndrome. How many of your employees, you've got around 50 or so, have a disability?
Yeah, so we don't formally track disability status within the team. Anecdotally, I can tell you, I think we've got over 60 people on our staff total. Probably over 50 have a disability, but I don't have a specific
No, I got you.
20% have
I don't
this
even,
or 13% have that.
Yeah. I don't even know if I'm legally allowed to ask that question. So I have no clue. I'm just so curious. So, I mean, so tell me about your people. Tell me about your team, just broadly, your 60
we've got
people.
an incredible team. So we've got a number of people who probably the most number of people we have on our team work as baristas. So at the shop, greeting customers, making all the drinks. And that's where we've got a lot of people who this is their first job and this is their first time making money and this is their first time opening a bank account. And the stories and the impact that come with that is so awesome. Like we have one person who she started with us when she was 14. She was in middle school, working part-time on the weekends. And she told me, she said, my goal is I want to graduate from high school one day and I want to become full-time with 3-2-1. And between then and now, she made, worked, and she asked to be paid by check because she wanted to practice signing the check, and she liked to take it to the ATM and physically deposit the cash. And this January, she accomplished her goal. She graduated from high school. She became full-time with 3-2-1. She is an awesome person and barista. And to know that we were a part of that growth is amazing. We've got somebody else who, this is an awesome story. His favorite thing is payday. Understandably. Whenever we see him, he tells me how many days it is until payday, which I love. And most recently so I always ask him, what are you saving up for? And, there's always shoes, new phone case, whatever. But recently he got a new TV, which is awesome. And he was excited. He said, come here. And I didn't know where he was going, but he went over to his backpack and he pulled out this cord. And I'm like, what are you showing me here? And it was the cord to the TV. He apparently, when he comes to work now, he brings the power cord so that his siblings don't watch the TV without him because it's his TV.
That's so awesome.
It is.
Oh.
We have two other people that are One of them's a barista, and one of them's a roaster and a barista, Sophie and Sam. They just got engaged, which is like the
Mm.
coolest thing ever.
Did they meet at
They met
321?
at 321, yes.
Oh God,
And
that's so freaky.
I mean, both of them have incredible journeys uh, and stories that like 321 has been able to that we've gotten to see throughout their lives over the past couple of years. But yeah, the fact that I mean, they're getting married in September and they're getting a townhouse, like they're building a life for themselves, and it's awesome. So we've got an awesome team of baristas. We've got managers who are really supportive, really dialed in, and just so driven by facilitating growth for our people. We've got a lot of them are former special ed teachers, which I think is a really unique application. A lot of them have come to us and say, like, I've never made coffee. I have no idea how to open or close a shop. And we say, like, don't worry, we can teach that. Like, we can't teach patience, we can't teach kindness. And a lot of them just
Yes.
have that eye. We've got a roasting and production team who crush it. I think they've got a really cool team culture. When we first started like roasting and production and like built out our own warehouse and roasting facility, I was honestly a little nervous about like, would anybody really be interested in working in that role when we also have the public facing stores? Like, it's behind the scenes. It's a lot more grunt work. It's a lot of the same. It's a lot of moving big things. And they work so hard and they love it and they love each other and they have fun and they play great music and they have little funny like competitions and they take lunch breaks together and they find ways to just make it still like centered around people and make it fun, which is awesome.
I love that so much. Um, is there anything else that I'm trying to think. Is there anything else we should talk about? Is there anything else you normally talk about when you tell this story that we've missed on?
Well, something that I think is really cool, specifically with your audience being like so rooted in hospitality. So statistic that I'm really proud of, we have over 300 people on a wait list who want to work at 321 Coffee. And I know everyone these past couple of years has struggled with labor, and I know the hospitality industry and like the food and beverage industry specifically has really struggled with labor and struggling to find people, struggling to get people to come in, struggling to get people to work weekends, struggling to get people to work the early mornings or the late nights. But we have found this overlooked community of people with disabilities. They are driven, they are hardworking, they are loyal. We see retention rates between 90 and 100% every year for the past 7 years. And so I think it's important to recognize the contributions that these people can make. And I mean, I would just say like any other company in this industry that might be struggling for labor, or even if you're okay with labor, but you're looking to do something different and do something intentional, I would really encourage people to consider employing people with disabilities because there's so much business value that comes from it.
God, that's 300 people.
Yeah, and that's only inbound. That is all people who've reached out to us and said, I'm looking for a job. And because no one leaves, we don't always have, unless we open a shop, we typically don't have an opening.
Well, you need to accelerate your growth plans, it sounds like,
We
Lindsay.
do. We do. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought. Okay, that's amazing. So then, I mean, I'll just ask it. Let's say somebody listens to this and is like, "I'm in." Like, what would you recommend to some? Like, how do you
Yeah.
find and attract like that audience?
Yep, absolutely. So I mean, if you're in Raleigh, send me your job listing and I'll share it with
Yeah,
our
yeah.
list. But otherwise, there's a ton of oftentimes there's a lot of local programming for in communities like the disability community. So whether it's recreational or like recreational programming with things like Special Olympics or in Raleigh we've got like abilities tennis, Miracle League, things like that. Organizations that like just focus on creating opportunities for people with disabilities, that would be a great place to like go to and say like, hey, we're hiring. We would love to hire people with disabilities. We'd love to have more diversity represented within our team. Would you be willing to share this job listing with your community? And I don't know why any of them would say no. So I would do that. I would connect with called special education programs in high schools, a lot of times they are looking for placement opportunities for their graduating seniors. They're looking to offer transition programming just within their curriculum. There also are a lot of times truly like programs that help with transition programs. So when somebody with a disability graduates from high school and maybe they're choosing to not pursue any form of higher education, but they can't get a job, there's some programs that will help do that job search and job placement and job training and coaching and things like that. So for trying to find some of them to just again make your positions available. Also, just telling people, we have found so much value in just word of mouth. We've also seen that so many people like, oh, well, my, you know, daughter's somebody is a special ed teacher, or my neighbor has a cousin who has a disability, or, there's a small world, right? And there's a lot of
Yeah.
people that through some form or fashion have some connection to this community. And so start telling people and get the word out there that you're trying to do the right thing.
Do you have a lot of people calling you saying, I want to bring 321 to Atlanta or
Yeah,
Houston or
I think you
Dallas or
asked
whatever?
earlier about franchising. Yeah, we get that asked all the time. We don't quite have like the true franchise packet ready to just hand over to somebody. But what we do is every quarter we host a 2-hour just free conversation webinar info session with Michael and I and anyone who wants to join. And we just talk about here's how we did this. Here's some of the things that we thought about. Here's what we considered. Here's what we needed to do for insurance. Here's how you set up payroll. So a combination of like setting up and building something like within the food and beverage industry, but then also like when it comes to employing people with disabilities, here's how we consider training. Here's some of the recruiting tips. Here's what we do special when it comes to interviewing. And so, yeah, I guess if someone is really serious, come attend one of our info sessions because we'll talk about a lot of those things too.
When are those?
Every quarter. I think the next one might be in August.
How would you find out, like, if somebody wanted to
Oh
come
yeah.
and
On our website we have a tab called Chat with the Founders, and that's got the next date. It has what we would cover. It's got the link to register so that you'll get the video link. Yeah, come on.
and you just do it like on like YouTube or something or Facebook Live or
Google Meets.
Google
So
Meets?
yeah,
Okay.
people can ask questions, chime in.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. That is super cool. And I'm just brainstorming out loud here. This is stream of conscious, but I think it'd be really cool to share with our schedule fly customers maybe when the next one is, if anybody is interested, particularly in, okay, so I'm interested in learning more about how I can tap into the disability community in my area out here in Boulder, Colorado or whatever,
For
because I've got
sure.
restaurants and I want to, okay. And man, this is
Absolutely.
so cool. This is so freaking cool, Lindsay. I've done, like I said, I mean, we've been doing this a dozen years, done over 500 episodes on this podcast, and this one goes down as like an all-time one of my favorites because what y'all are doing is so magical and so beautiful and so intentional and memorable and just inspiring. So thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're a very busy lady, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and share this. And my stepmom lives in Cary. I'm up there once a month. I've not been to one of your shops. I guarantee I'll be there next time I come for sure.
That's
And I'll let
awesome.
you know when, because I'd love to meet you in person if it's possible. But thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing about 321 and inclusion and specifically disability inclusion with your platform and community. It really means a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, tell everybody hello. I'm glad that we had this opportunity. Congrats on everything. I'm going to keep just following along, y'all. If you're listening, what's the best place to? I will say follow 321 Coffee on LinkedIn because I do, and it's awesome. I'm sure you'll have a lot of social media presence. So, what's the best place? Just come to your website and follow y'all from
Yeah,
there.
everything should be linked on the website. The handle is drink321 coffee. We're on all the social media. We've got a lot of great stories. So yes, follow along, subscribe to our newsletter, be a part of our community.
All right, y'all. That's a wrap. Lindsay with 321 Coffee. What a great episode. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks, Will.
All right. See y'all.